why does my child have autism? Okay, why does my child have autism and that child doesn't? Whether that be another child of yours, whether that be the sibling of a child with autism, or whether that be just another kid out there, whether it's a family member or a friend or just somebody at school. Why this child and not the other? And that's what I really wanted to start and focus on, because this whole set of Facebook Lives is to help you from the journey of A to B. How do I get my child with autism on their road to recovery to eventually become neurotypical child? That's our goal working with our kids. Okay, so the first part of this journey as to why really has to do with the first 2 years of life. Okay, now the first 2 years of life, children are going to have one story or another, usually. Okay, now there's always exceptions to the rules, but this is in general. Okay, group one is the child who always developed slowly. So you have your child and they're a little baby and they're infants, and all of a sudden they're starting to move and they're starting to crawl and they're starting to walk and they're starting to babble. Some kids just are slow. Some kids just, boy, my child just so slow to develop any kind of words, any kind of babbling, any kind of language, mama, papa, just never happened. It just so, maybe when they were 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old, we started getting something, but that language, that verbal communication just never happened. Same thing with eye contact. Boy, our child never looked at us, and we'd make noise and we'd talk to them and shout, but they would always be staring somewhere else, staring at the ceilings, and not looking, not engaging with us as parents, as their mother and their father. So those are the kind of kids that we call non-regressive, okay? Now, the other group of kids are the children who regress. Now, this is much more common. Kids who regress, the classic story is 12 months old, I'm starting to babble, I got some mama, I got some dada, I've got smiles, I've got eye contact, I'm engaging. Then all of a sudden, usually between 12 and 18 months, it goes away. It disappears. The language is gone. The eye contact is gone. Something obviously took my child's progression of development and made it go that way, okay? This is called regressive autism because we had a regression, all right? So these are the two major groups of how autism occurs, why autism happens. The regressive is much, much more common. I would say 90 out of 100 kids are going to have the regressive, not the non-regressive. But it's important to differentiate the two, because what differentiates the why of a child who regresses and a child who doesn't regress is genetics. So we're going to start today talking about genetic testing and why genetic testing is so important, and some myths about genetic testing that I talk to my patients about and I want to make sure are clear for you guys. So number one, there are genetic causes of some cases of autism. Okay, for example, Fragile X syndrome. Right? You may have heard of Fragile X syndrome. A lot of pediatricians will test a child for Fragile X syndrome. That is a genetic condition that causes the symptoms of autism. Okay, it causes developmental delays. Just dropping pens here. Causes the developmental delays, causes the speech delays. It causes all the symptoms that we see. Now, how do we get a little sidebar here? How do we get a diagnosis of autism? Well, that occurs because our child is not developing, and we bring him to school or bring him to some early intervention program or a developmental pediatrician, and they say, "Yep, you're not developing on schedule like other kids. We're going to call this autism." But in that evaluation, there's never a why. Why does my child have autism? Why is my child delayed? They just give you the label and move you on your way. Go to your therapist. Okay, so you can be born with a genetic condition that causes these developmental delays. And again, Fragile X is an example of one. But there are many, 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 many genetic problems that will be the cause, the ultimate cause of developmental delays. And those genetic conditions are from birth. Okay, so those are the kids who just are slow to develop from the beginning, because those are the genetics that they are born with. Now, here's the big myth that I want to help clear up, okay? Many genetic conditions are treatable. Now, you can't change your DNA, okay? Your DNA is your DNA. You can't change that, but you can treat it and make life better. So a lot of parents talk to me and they're like, why do I want to do genetic testing when I can't do anything about it? That's the myth. You can do something about it. You can treat it. As an example, there's a genetic condition that's popular, not popular, but it's common, called cystic fibrosis. Okay, now cystic fibrosis used to really shorten lifespans to about 30 years old. But now there are new treatments. Science has created treatments so that that life expectancy is many years longer. All right. So again, you're born with a genetic condition. Can't change that, but you can treat it. Okay. You can treat it for a better duration or a better quality of life. Now, cystic fibrosis has nothing to do with autism. I'm just using that as an example of something that we've discovered treatments for to really help people, even though it's a genetic condition you're born with. Okay. So if you have a child who was slow to develop from the beginning, or if you have a child where you have done so many different treatments, pharmaceuticals, biomedical, diets, machines, you name it, nothing ever worked for your kid. Trust me, those are the kids that need genetic testing, okay? Now, what kind of genetic testing are we talking about? We're talking about two major tests. One is called a CMA, and one is called a WES. Now, I've got, let me pull that out. I had it printed up here. Okay, see if I can just hold it here up at the bottom. Okay, I don't want to give away the, oh, no, never mind. No regression. You're going to want a CMA and a WES test. Now, what do these look for? And then we're going to get into some scientific research. The CMA is an acronym for a chromosomal microarray. What it looks for is missing pieces of DNA. What if I was born missing the piece of DNA that controls language development? All right, that's a pretty important thing to know. So the CMA looks for missing pieces or extra pieces of DNA. The other test, WES, that's an acronym for whole exome sequence. What that's doing is it's like a spell check of your DNA. It's making sure that some of those genes are functioning as they should be. In many genetic conditions, you have a mutation of that piece of DNA that's causing the problems. Okay, so the CMA and the WES test, there's no overlap. They're two totally independent tests. So you've got to do both of them. Okay, so if you have a child never regressed, always slow to develop, or you have a child where no treatments have really been effective, please, please, please get that genetic testing, get the CMA and the WES. Now, how do you get that testing? You got two choices, okay? Choice number one, go to your pediatrician, go to a geneticist, go to a developmental pediatrician, and see if they'll order that test and see if your insurance will pay. Sometimes insurance pays, sometimes they don't, okay? Find out how much that's gonna cost you, and then compare it to the one that we have on our website. So we have this CMA WES test on our website, okay? The one we have is a cheek swab. So it's like a big Q-tip, you get some saliva on it in your child's cheek, boom, you send it to the lab and you've got your test, okay? So, and the one that normally is done elsewhere through insurance is gonna be a blood draw. So you've gotta weigh those two issues. You know, how am I gonna get this testing done? Will my insurance pay for it? If so, do I have a portion of that? And then compare it to what we have as a cash price on our website to get the testing done. But get the testing done so you know the answer and find a potential treatment for your child. All right. Now, if you've already had this genetic testing done and you have something that's abnormal, but the geneticist just kind of said, hey, there's nothing you can do, send it to me and we can discuss if I potentially have a treatment for it. And if I do, we can set up an appointment and discuss it in details. All right. But, you know, if you do have some kind of genetic mutation, deletion, duplication, we may be able to have treatment for it that the geneticist doesn't. Geneticists are very smart people, but often very black and white. And I try to interpret genetics in a gray area and find treatments. So that's step one. Now, step two, what if you have a child who regressed? Again, this is much, much, much more common. The regression happens because your child's developing normally, but then something sets them off that space shuttle rocket ship of development and sends them back the other way. Now, most have agreed in the scientific community that this has to do with toxicity, okay? Now, there's many toxins out there that can affect the brain and cause this reversal of development, okay? Why are some kids predisposed to that regression but not others has to do with genetics, but a different type of genetics. These are called genetic Snips, SNP. These are genetic predispositions. These are genetic risk factors, okay? Your child was not born delayed because they started talking and making eye contact. But then all of a sudden, they went off that course because they're predisposed, okay? Why do some people get diabetes? Why do some people get heart disease? Why do some people get cancer? Why do some people get autoimmune disease, okay? This has to do with the genetic predisposition of what type of illness my body probably will get as I age. And so some kids are going to have that genetic predisposition for neurological problems. So that's where the genetic SNP test comes in hand. This is very similar to what's been done with 23andMe. There's a lot of companies out there that are doing this SNP testing now. What you've got to do is get somebody who knows what to do with those results. You know, a lot of my patients will come up to me and be like, hey, I got this test and I don't know what to do with it, okay? That's where we help with our telemedicine appointments. We're going to take that info and give you direction and give you treatments. But again, these SNP mutations, such as MTHFR, these SNP mutations did not cause the problem, but they were the risk factor for why your child did regress. So that will also give us treatment ideas. So again, back to this page I was holding up before, if your child did have a regression, I highly recommend the genetic SNP test versus children who don't regress. I recommend the CMA and the WES. Now, the SNP testing, MTHFR, geneticists are not going to order this. Geneticists don't think this is a real thing, okay? Geneticists ignore that, believe this. If you want a SNP test, what you have to do is get it over the counter somewhere or through your doc, or of course, you know, here at Spectrum Awakening, we have these SNP tests available for you. Get them on our website and we'll get the results and I will write a personal written interpretation with some guidelines and treatment ideas for you. That test is also a cheek swab with the lab we use. So ideas for genetic testing. Now, is there any scientific proof behind these? Of course there is. So let me get into some research studies that talk about the different genes that we should be, concerned about. First off, this is a research study from 2021. Holy cow, this came out January 4th, 2021. I am on top of it. All right, this is the genetic findings in children with autism. And in their group, they had 209 autism kids, and they found 117 different genetic deletions or duplications in 75 of the patients. 11 of those were pathogenic. 11 of those were definitively the problem. So this study took 200 kids-ish, and they found out of 75 of those kids, so almost half, they had genetic deletions or duplications, and 11 of them, or 5%, were obvious red flag causes. Boom. This is the problem. This is the cause. This is the smoking gun. So again, 5% isn't a lot of kids, but this is just kind of general. We took all the autism kids. We didn't select it to those who were specifically non-regressive. You're going to have a much higher response and percentage of kids who have that. Okay, here's another one. This is from December of 2020, the coexistence of ADHD and autism in different DNA sequencing. They found specific variants. All these numbers here that you're seeing are just specific genes and gene locations on the DNA that were a possible role in causing the autism. So again, a lot of kids with autism have ADHD symptoms because they can't focus, so it kind of goes hand in hand. But again, they're finding genetics. They're finding causative genetics that you should look for. Here's another interesting study from last month, December 2020. The Temple Grandin genome, a scientist with high-functioning autism, they did some research and again found some different genes here, SHANK2, ALK1, Relin gene, et cetera, that are causing them. All right, so that's more research that this is something we need to test, something we need to find. Another example, this is a list of genes that are known to cause autism from a lab called GeneDx. GeneDx is a very big genetic lab here in the States, not the one we use with Spectrum Awakening, but still a high quality lab. This is the list of genes that they test for in their autism panel. Now, we have about 20,000 genes in our body. This panel for autism only looks at 2,000 of them. So it looks about 10% of their genes. This is 10% of our genes that are potentially known to cause autism. So these are all the genes that you want to look for here. Oh, wait, that's just the first page. Here's the second page. Here's the third page. Here's the fourth page. Here's the fifth page. Here's the sixth page. All right, it goes on. And if you want to look at these, you can just Google GeneDx Autism ID panel. But hopefully the thought is there, which is that there are a lot of genes that science already know can cause autism. And if you don't test your child, you won't know if it is the cause. And if we know the cause, we can find a treatment. Okay. And again, many genetic conditions have treatments. And that is a big myth I want to dispel with people, because a lot of people think, oh, I got a genetic thing, I can't do anything. All right. You can. You can do something about it. So the point is, get tested. So again, these are kids who are non-regressive or non-responders. Please get the CMA and WES test, whether it's through your doctor, whether it's through our website, get the testing done. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about these SNP tests. So the SNP tests are looking for genetic risk factors or genetic predispositions on why my child, why did they regress and not somebody else? And there's a lot of different genetic SNPs that we can look at. One of the most popular ones, if not the most popular, is MTHFR. And this is a meta-analysis published in 2020 about MTHFR and how the MTHFR C677T polymorphism is a susceptibility factor for autism. And again, this is just one out of many research studies that look at different genes that are risk factors, okay? We look at kids with autism, and boy, a lot of those kids have this gene SNP problem where neurotypical kids don't. So it's not causing it, because these are kids who regressed and were developing normally, but yet it happened to them eventually. So I highly recommend getting some kind of genetic testing done for your child and then getting it interpreted appropriately. So again, if you already have this testing done, or you want me to order the testing for you, you can get on our website. You can sign up as a telemedicine appointment with me so we can order the test or interpret the test you already have. So that's kind of my first point in helping us understand why. Well, gee, why did this happen? You've got to look at your genetics. You have to look for genetics of causation or genetics of risk factor. And that will really help you start on your individualized treatment for your child. Another question I get a lot is, well, if my child does have a genetic condition, what's the treatment? There are so many different genetic conditions. Look, that GeneDx panel had 2,000 different genes. There's going to be individualized treatments for each gene. So there is no one size fits all for treatment. However, if you are new on this journey, I want to make sure we also talk about potential treatments. So the first two things I'd like everybody to try, if you're new to the biomedical world, if you haven't done any kind of vitamins, where do I start? Because everybody's so individual, I want to start with two basic things that work for most people: fish oil or omegas and vitamin D. I think those are nutritional basics that most of our kids don't get, not just autism and neurotypical kids, and should be supplemented. So if you would like our Spectrum Awakening brands, our vitamin D we have as a chewable. So this is called Chewable Sunshine. It's a combination of vitamin D and K2. Each vitamin D tablet is 2,000 IUs. Those are cherry flavored. And this is our liquid. We call it Liquid Sunshine. And again, each drop is 2,000 IUs as well. Nice, easy ways to get vitamin D in your kid. Our vitamin D supplements are both gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and non-GMO. So that's a good start. Next, omegas or fish oils. There's so many out there, okay? We have some on our website that we know are high quality, and we have them as soft gels. So this is our soft gel. We have them as gummies. Yeah, gummies have sugar, but sometimes that's all kids will take. So these are our fish oil gummies. They're orange and lemon flavored. I have potentially, rumor has it, eaten an entire bottle in one day, but I will not confirm to that. And also we have a new omega liquid that does not taste like fish, which is awesome. Big problem with the fish oil liquids. Bleh, I taste like fish. This one tastes like bubblegum. Okay, it's called Taste Free Omega Gold. Tastes like bubblegum, does not taste like fish, which is awesome. Okay, so those are some options for things to start with. This is step one of our new Facebook Live set. Why does my child have autism? Get the genetics done with your doc through our website, whatever way. It's the start of the journey for you.